The perfect relationship. I met her during my second year of college. She was confident, ambitious, and had this magnetic energy that made people want to be around her. I couldn't help but fall for her. We clicked almost immediately. Late-night talks, shared dreams, and promises to always support each other no matter what. After graduation, we decided to move in together. She landed a job at a big company in the city, and I started working on building my career. We were the definition of a team. She always talked about wanting more for herself. Bigger roles, better opportunities, and climbing the corporate ladder. I admired her drive. I believed in her. Her dreams of success. The first year at her job was tough. She worked long hours, barely had time to sleep, and often vented about how her boss never appreciated her. "He overlooks everything I do," she'd complain. "It's like he doesn't see how hard I work." I would reassure her, "Your time will come. You're too good for them not to notice." I truly believed that one day her hard work would pay off. She would get that promotion she always dreamed of, and we'd celebrate her success together. The promise of forever. Our relationship felt unbreakable. We were best friends, lovers, and partners in everything. She'd talk about our future together, buying a house, traveling the world, and eventually starting a family when the time was right. "You're the only one who really understands me," she said once, as we lay on the couch after a long day. "I don't think I could ever do this without you." I smiled, holding on to her words like they were a promise. I didn't know then that promises can be broken, especially when ambition takes over. The change begins. But as time went on, things began to shift. Her long hours at work turned into late nights. She started receiving mysterious phone calls and text messages, often stepping out of the room to answer them. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was working hard for her promotion, and I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? But then I noticed how distant she was becoming. How she'd avoid eye contact when I asked about her day. How her laugh seemed forced when we were together, and how she started coming home later and later. "Everything's fine." One night I confronted her. She had just come home at midnight, claiming she'd been stuck in a meeting. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "You've been acting different lately." She didn't even look at me as she kicked off her shoes. "You're overthinking. Work has just been really demanding. You know how it is." I nodded, forcing myself to believe her. "She's just stressed," I told myself. "She's doing this for us. For her career. For our future." But deep down, something didn't feel right. The signs of betrayal. The night she came home late again, something inside me snapped. It was almost 2 a.m., and I was sitting in the dark living room, waiting. I heard her car pull into the driveway, followed by the sound of heels clicking up the steps. She opened the door, her face frozen in surprise when she saw me. "What are you doing up?" she asked casually, as if nothing was wrong. "I should be asking you the same thing," I replied. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding. She avoided my gaze and tossed her purse on the table. "I told you, work ran late." This time I didn't let it slide. "It's always work, isn't it? Midnight meetings, unanswered texts, secret phone calls. What's really going on?" She froze for just a moment, long enough for me to catch the panic in her eyes, before she put on her usual act. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "You're starting to sound paranoid." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But that look, just 1 second of hesitation, planted a seed of doubt in my mind. The clues add up. After that night, I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Her phone. It was always face down on the table, always locked. I once caught her smiling at a text, only to see her quickly hide the screen when I walked into the room. The smell of cologne. One night, when she came home, I hugged her, and I could smell it. Cologne that wasn't mine. She brushed me off, claiming it was probably from a coworker's office. The lying, her excuses didn't add up anymore. Meetings that didn't make sense. Weekend work events she didn't invite me to. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I couldn't help myself. I grabbed her phone. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I'd find something. The lock screen lit up. It was a message from someone named James. Had a great time last night. Can't wait to see you again. My stomach dropped. The text was staring at me like a slap in the face. Confrontation. That night, I waited for her. She came home, humming a tune like she didn't have a care in the world. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen, holding her phone. "What's this?" I asked, my voice low. Her smile faltered. "Where did you get that?" "I don't think that matters." "Who the hell is James?" She froze, her face suddenly pale. Then, just like that, she switched into defense mode. "You went through my phone?" she yelled. "That's insane. Do you not trust me anymore? You're really going to make me the bad guy here?" I snapped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Who is he? Tell me the truth." First, she denied it. She said he was just a friend, a colleague from work who was helping her on a big project. But I wasn't stupid. I pushed harder and finally she broke. "Fine," she screamed. "I've been seeing him. Are you happy now? He's my boss. And you know what? He actually respects me. He's helping me get somewhere in life. Something you'll never understand." Her words cut like a knife. Couldn't breathe. "You threw everything away for a promotion?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "It's not like that," she muttered, looking away. But the damage was done. The breaking point. I don't remember what I said after that. All I know is that I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and didn't look back. I drove for hours that night, my thoughts racing. How could she do this to me? To us? I remembered all the times I had supported her. When she cried over her workload. When I told her she would achieve great things. When I believed in her more than she believed in herself. And for what? For her to sell herself out to some sleazy boss for a better title and a corner office? The aftermath. Over the next few days, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. Friends asked what happened, but I didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell people that the person you trusted most betrayed you for something as empty as a job title? I felt humiliated, angry, weak, but most of all I felt lost. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. That's when I knew I had two choices. I could let her betrayal destroy me, or I could use it to build something better. The ultimate betrayal. Drowning the pain. After I left that night, I didn't go home. Couldn't. Instead, I found myself in a bar on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one asks questions. I sat in a dark corner, nursing a whiskey, replaying every moment of our relationship in my head. Every "I love you," every promise, every plan for the future, a lie. All of it. By the third glass, the anger had started to burn through the sadness. How could she? After everything I had done for her? I was the one who stood by her when her own friends doubted her. I gave her love, time, and support, and she threw it all away for a man who offered her a promotion and empty compliments. As I sat there, staring at my drink, I heard laughter from across the bar. A familiar face. I turned and froze. It was her. My girl. Or at least the girl I thought I knew. She was sitting at a table in the far corner with him, James, her boss. She was laughing, holding a glass of wine in one hand, while her other hand rested on his arm. My chest tightened, my fists clenched. She didn't even look guilty. She looked happy, like everything we'd shared meant nothing. I wanted to confront her right there, scream at her, at him, but I didn't. Instead, I sat in the shadows and watched. Watched as the woman I thought I'd spend my life with flirted with the man she'd betrayed me for. At one point, she leaned in and kissed him. Not a quick kiss, but one that told me exactly how long this had been going on. Losing control. Something inside me snapped. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. The noise made heads turn, but I didn't care. I stormed out of the bar, my mind spinning, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't even think straight. I drove home in a daze. The image of her with him burned into my brain. When I got back to the apartment, the one we shared, I saw her things everywhere. Her shoes by the door, her sweater draped over the couch, her perfume still lingering in the air. I grabbed one of the wine bottles she had left in the kitchen, twisted it open, and drank straight from the bottle. If she could forget about me so easily, why shouldn't I do the same? But the alcohol didn't help. It just made everything worse. I stared at our old photos on the wall, my hands shaking, until finally, I ripped them down one by one. The glass frames shattered on the floor, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. The final discovery. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with a splitting headache and the bitter taste of regret in my mouth. The apartment was a wreck, but it didn't matter. Then my phone buzzed, a notification. It was from her. A text. "We need to talk." I stared at the screen. Talk? What was left to say? I ignored it, but a few hours later, I got another text. This time, it was a photo sent anonymously to my number. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a picture of her and James, sitting together in his office. She was perched on his desk, holding a glass of champagne. In the background, there was a document with her name on it. A promotion letter. She had been celebrating what she had gotten out of all this. Out of me, the confrontation. When she came back to the apartment that night, I was waiting. I was calm, but every muscle in my body was tense. She opened the door and stopped when she saw me sitting at the table. "We need to talk," she said softly. "Yeah," I replied, my voice cold. "We do." She sat down across from me, setting her keys on the table. For a moment there was silence. Then she spoke. "I didn't want you to find out this way." "Stop." I cut her off. "I know everything. About you and James. About the promotion. About the lies." The breaking point. Her face went pale, but I wasn't giving her the chance to spin more lies. I pulled out my phone and tossed it onto the table. The photo of her and James celebrating in his office glowing on the screen. "Explain this," I said, my voice calm but razor-sharp. She glanced at the picture and then back at me. I could see her brain racing, searching for a way out, but there was no escape this time. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice cracking. I slammed my fist on the table. "Not what I think. I saw you. At the bar. With him. I watched you kiss him like I never existed. And now I get this." I pointed to the photo. "You were celebrating, weren't you? Your big promotion. Was it worth it?" Her expression hardened. She dropped the act, the fake guilt evaporating. "Why are you acting like this?" She shot back, raising her voice. "I did what I had to do. I worked my ass off for that position. Do you know how hard it is to get noticed? To get ahead? You wouldn't understand." "Understand," I repeated, disbelief washing over me. "I was your biggest supporter. I stood by you every step of the way, and you threw me under the bus. For what? A title? A pay raise?" She crossed her arms and looked away. "You're just mad because I'm moving up in life while you're stuck in the same place. I needed someone who could actually help me get where I want to be." Her words hit me harder than any punch ever could. I stared at her, trying to find a trace of the woman I had loved. The woman I thought I knew, but she was gone. All I saw was someone I didn't recognize. The moment of clarity. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. "You know what? I hope it was worth it." She blinked, surprised. "What are you talking about?" I grabbed my jacket and walked to the door. "Your title. Your raise. Your champagne celebrations with your boss. I hope it makes you happy because you just lost the one person who would have been there for you no matter what." For a moment, I thought I saw regret flicker in her eyes. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going to let her drag me down any further. As I walked out, she called after me. "You're being dramatic. You'll regret this." But I didn't look back. The spiral. The first few weeks after I left were brutal. I felt like I was drowning. Every morning, I'd wake up and remember everything. Her face, her laugh, the promises we made, and then the betrayal would hit me all over again. I didn't eat much. I didn't sleep. The anger and pain were a storm in my chest, tearing me apart from the inside out. One night, I went back to that same bar where I'd seen her with James. I sat in the same corner and drank until I couldn't think straight. At one point, the bartender asked if I was okay. I just laughed bitterly. Not even close. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I was a ghost of who I used to be, and it felt like she had one. But then, something changed. turning the pain into power. One night, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I didn't recognize. Tired, broken, and defeated. That's when I realized I couldn't let her betrayal define me, couldn't let her win. She had chosen her path, but I still had the power to choose mine. I started small. I went back to the gym, forcing myself to work through the anger and frustration. Every drop of sweat felt like I was letting go of her, of the lies, of the pain. I threw myself into my work, putting in extra hours, learning new skills, and finally pushing for the promotion I'd been ignoring because I was too focused on supporting her dreams. Her betrayal had lit a fire inside me, rising from the ashes. Months later, I was a different man. I was stronger, sharper, and more driven than ever before. I had gotten my promotion, doubled my income, and started building a life I was proud of. A life where I was in control. One day, I ran into her by accident. She was standing in line at a coffee shop, looking polished and professional but hollow. She glanced up, saw me, and froze. I smiled politely, nodded, and walked right past her. "Hey," she called after me. "Can we talk?" I turned around and met her gaze. There's nothing left to say. Her face fell, but I didn't feel anger or pain anymore. I felt free. The lesson. Her betrayal nearly destroyed me, but in the end, it made me stronger. I realized that some people will do whatever it takes to get ahead, even if it means stepping on the ones who love them most. But their actions don't define you, your choices do. I chose to rise. I chose to rebuild. And I chose to never let someone like her take my power away again. Final line. Her betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it showed me exactly who I am, and who I'll never be. The ultimate downfall. Drowning in the dark. After walking out on her that night, I thought I'd feel relief, like some weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Instead, the pain got worse. Days blurred into nights, and I sank deeper into a hole I didn't know how to climb out of. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I stopped answering texts from my friends. My apartment was a mess, like my life. The photos of us, once hung proudly on the walls, were now in pieces on the floor. I told myself the drinking was temporary, that it helped dull the sting of betrayal. But one night it nearly went too far. I had been out again, drinking at the same bar where I saw her kissing James. My third round turned into my sixth, and the bartender finally said, "I think you've had enough, man." "Enough?" I slurred, laughing bitterly. Enough of what? She already took everything. Stumbling into the parking lot, I fumbled with my keys, trying to unlock my car. But as I sat behind the wheel, something hit me. A memory of her. Her voice echoed in my head. "You'll regret this. You'll never make it without me." I gripped the steering wheel, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked hollow, broken. Was this who I was now? Was this the man I wanted to be? The answer was no. I stepped out of the car and walked home that night, miles through the cold and dark. It was the longest walk of my life, but every step felt like I was waking up. The breaking point and the wake-up call. The next morning, I woke up on the floor of my apartment with a splitting headache, surrounded by empty bottles and torn reminders of my past life. I stared at the ceiling, and for the first time, I said the truth out loud. She didn't destroy me. I destroyed myself. It wasn't just her betrayal that had pulled me down. It was how I had let it consume me. That realization was like a slap in the face. I remembered who I used to be before her, and I realized I could still be that man, and better. Channeling the pain. I started small. I cleaned my apartment from top to bottom. I took every reminder of her. Photos, notes, gifts, and packed them into a box. I didn't burn it, I didn't smash it. I just put it away. That box wasn't for her. It was for me. A symbol that I was moving on. Then I set goals. Get back to the gym. Focus on work. Stop drinking. Become someone I could respect again. First, it was hard. Every day felt like a fight. But every push-up, every late night working, every small win felt like a middle finger to her and the version of myself I refused to be anymore. The revenge of success. Months passed, and I started to see the results. I got stronger both physically and mentally. My hard work at my job paid off, and I earned the promotion I had been putting off while I wasted time supporting her dreams. My bank account was growing, and so was my confidence. One day, I was invited to a corporate event, one of those big, formal networking mixers where everyone pretends to care about each other. I almost skipped it, but something told me to go. I walked in wearing a sharp suit, feeling like a completely different person. The man who had been broken, lost, and betrayed was gone. And guess who I saw the moment I walked through the doors? Her. She was standing across the room, holding a glass of champagne, laughing at something James said. Only this time she didn't look so happy. Her eyes met mine, and her face froze. She looked me up and down, at the man I had become, and I swear I saw regret flicker across her face. James, standing next to her, looked like he didn't even know I existed. I smirked, grabbed a drink, and turned my back to them. The final encounter. She found me later that night, just as I was getting ready to leave. "Hey," she said, her voice hesitant. I turned to face her. "Surprised to see me?" She forced a smile. "You look different." "Better, you mean?" I replied, smiling back. There was silence. For the first time, she looked small, like she didn't know what to say. "I've been meaning to reach out," she said softly. I made a mistake. There it was, the regret, the apology I thought I wanted to hear. But instead of feeling anger or pain, I felt nothing. "You didn't make a mistake," I said. "You made a choice. And so did I." Her face fell. "You're really not angry anymore?" I shook my head. "No. You showed me exactly who you are. And you know what? I should thank you, because I wouldn't be where I am now if you hadn't walked out on me." For a moment, she stood there, speechless. I didn't wait for her to respond. I walked away, feeling lighter than I had in years. The lesson. That night, I realized something important. Her betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me. It hurt. It broke me. But it also forced me to rebuild myself into someone stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. People will betray you. They'll lie, cheat, and walk all over you if you let them. But their choices don't define you, how you respond does. I responded by rising higher than I ever thought possible. Final line. She climbed over me to get her promotion. I climbed past her to build a life she'll never be part of again. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because that's what inspires me to write interesting stories for you. Share in the comments why you listened to this story to the end, write what you wanted to hear the next story about.